Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So you see the thumbnail, you see the title, pretty straightforward subject matter today. My most worn fragrances in my collection. Someone asked me really not that long ago, can I do a video like this? I said, sure. Honestly, I've been kind of putting this topic off because number one, I haven't really accurately tracked my fragrance wears over the course of me collecting fragrances. I've only actually been doing it religiously, so to speak, for the last few months. So I kind of needed to let that build up a bit, but I decided, I'll go ahead and do it now, and I can always do another video later on where I have more empirical data to show that, hey, based off of me actually tracking my wears, this is what I've worn the most. So this list is not going to be 100% accurate. What I decided to do was choose 10 fragrances that I know I've at least worn to some degree a lot, and I'm going to choose 5 fragrances on Parfumo, which is what I use to track my wears. I'm going to use the top 5 wears from that site, which is not going to be my actual top 5, but I'm going to use the top 5 from there, and then I'll use top 5 just based off of really the dents in my bottle, because those are the two best ways you can tell which fragrances you wear the most. The ones where the most juice is gone, and the ones where you've actually written it down or tracked it. So that's what we're going to do for today. So before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get it started. So for the start of the list, I'm going to do the Parfumo tracked fragrances. Now, I had a ton of fragrances that had 4 wears. And most of those fragrances I know I've worn more than 4 times. But to keep it from getting confusing, I just chose the latest one I have worn. And that happens to be this one right here from the House of Xerjoff. This is 40 Knots. Xerjoff 40 Knots. I've probably actually worn this maybe 7 or 8 times, but on Parfumo, I've tracked it to 4. But this is a fragrance I definitely enjoy. I do think it can have a lot of uses. It is a very ambery, sweet, aquatic fragrance. Has some interesting note breakdown, honey, sea breeze. So that's a very interesting note breakdown. And it does have this sea breeze kind of vibe to it. But overall, it's a very interesting aquatic fragrance. One that I thoroughly enjoy. I get great performance out of it. I've gotten compliments while wearing it. Love this scent. It's gonna not necessarily be for everybody, or many people might think you should get something out of it that it doesn't actually offer, so it may be confusing for some folks. But other than that, I think it's a really good, solid fragrance from the House of Xerjoff. So once again, this is 40 Knots, and this has 4 wears on Parfumo. Alright, so the next one on Parfumo that I've worn the most with 6 wears, which I know I've worn this more than 6 times, from Marc-Antoine Barras, it's Ganymede. Marc-Antoine Barras Ganymede. So, you know, I've talked about this fragrance a ton. You probably, or at least somewhat familiar with it now. Kind of an orange flavoring to it, but also very mineralic, kind of metallic, a little bit of a leathery vibe to it. Interesting notes of Immortelle and Osmanthus. I think those two are kind of the ones that really brings this one home for me. It is one of my favorites in my collection. It's one of the most unique fragrances in my collection. And again, I know I've worn this more than 6 times, but I have to just go with the number of trackings I have. Now, if you look at the bottle, you can see there's not much juice gone. It almost looks brand new. The reason for that is it doesn't take a lot of sprays for this to kind of do what it does. I don't need to spray it a lot. But also, I haven't worn it like 20 times or anything like that, so there's no reason for the juice to really be that low. And because I go out of my way to wear a different fragrance all the time, not many of my fragrances get multiple wears, multiple days in a row. I don't think this one has had that pleasure yet. It will at one point, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a top worn fragrance for me, so I do think it deserves to be on this list. Once again, from Marc-Antoine Barras, this is Ganymede. Alright guys, so the next one also has 6 wears according to my tracker on Parfumo.net, but I wore Ganymede more recently, or should I say I wore this one more recently, so that's why I put it higher on the list. It's from the House of Zaharoff, and this is Second Soul. Zaharoff Second Soul with 6 wears on Parfumo. So this one is a barbershop style fragrance with some new school sensibilities to it. Has some booziness to it, very nice juniper note in this, some thick resinous kind of notes, some incensey kind of notes in it. It's a very full fragrance. It has a lot going on, but it all kind of comes together to make it one thing. So it's not like all over the place, so to speak. This is another one where if you look at the amount of juice gone, it pretty much looks brand new, but this is also another one that does not take a lot of sprays. Now, the wearing for this one might be more accurate. I unfortunately did not go to check and see when I started tracking on a regular basis, but I think it kind of coincides a little bit more with when I got this fragrance. I could be wrong, but I do think I've actually worn Ganymede more than I've worn this. But at most, it's maybe 8, no more than 10 times that I've worn it. And since, like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot of sprays, that's part of the reason why there's not a whole lot of juice gone. But it probably is still one of my most worn fragrances. So I do think it should be on the list in terms of my Parfumo tracking. So once again, from the House of Zahara, this is Second Soul. Alright guys, so the next one has 7 wears on Parfumo, but I also know I've worn this way many more times than that. This is from the House of Dior. It's Sauvage Eau de Parfum. Sauvage Eau de Parfum. And I know this one has more wears than that. Number one, I had this fragrance before I even knew about Parfumo. And also, this is one of the earliest fragrances in my entire collection. So naturally, it's going to have more wears than 7 times. Also, you probably can't see it, but I can kind of see it in one of my lights. There's maybe about 10 milliliters gone from this. So that's definitely more than 7 wears. And also, this is another one, you don't need to spray it a ton of times for it to work. I don't need to go into how this smells. Smells like a spicy, slightly aromatic shower gel fragrance. You know, it's Sauvage. Most people are definitely familiar with the scent DNA. I don't really need to break it down. But let's just be real. For guys kind of new to fragrances, or at least new to fragrance collecting, if you do happen to like Sauvage, it's probably something you've given plenty of wear to. So I imagine I'm certainly not unique in that regard. I don't really reach for it anymore. If I do, it's kind of just, I'll just give Sauvage a wear. But other than that, it's not something I'm reaching for a whole lot these days. So its number of wears is pretty much cemented, whatever that number actually might be. But I imagine on a lot of people's list, it's high up in terms of the total amount of wears. Once again, from the House of Dior, this is Sauvage Eau de Parfum. Alright guys, so the top fragrance I have in terms of the most wears on Parfumo.net is going to be this one right here with 8 tracked wears. It is Ormond Jane Montabaco Intensivo. Ormond Jane Montabaco Intensivo. Now I do think the number of wears for this is actually accurate. I want to say I was tracking all of my wears by the time I got this fragrance. So that's saying something because it's actually beating out ones that I haven't tracked accurately. Now, I might be wrong. I might have missed some trackings. Who knows? But I do know that I've worn this one a lot. If you do look at this one, it's not a big dent, but it is a dent. And I've only had this fragrance a few months. And considering the fact that I wear different fragrances all the time, for that to be a little bit of a dent that quick does say something. And I do think this is a wonderful fragrance. Signature scent worthy. Can pretty much wear it for everything. I got a couple of out-of-town trips coming up this month, and I might bring this one on one of the trips because I'm only going to bring one fragrance. This is a tobacco fragrance, of course, but it is accompanied by some very cooling, kind of fresh mountain air-like accords. Very interesting. Has a little bit of a fresh spiciness to it. There's a really strong tea accord. I think the fragrance kind of starts off as a tea fragrance, and there's also some dry cedar-like woodiness to the scent. Beautiful fragrance, man. I mean, this one really blew me away. Shout out to Equality Fragrances. That is who I heard about this fragrance from. I otherwise had no idea about it. So yeah, that's my top worn fragrance according to Parfumo.net with me tracking my wears. Once again, from the House of Ormond Jane, this is Montabaco Intensivo. Alright guys, so we're moving on to the fragrances that the only way I can tell I've worn them a lot is because they've got a significant dent in them. These are at least the top 5, at least in my mind. I think these are the ones I've worn the most. So starting off, we got another one from the House of Dior. It's Dior Homme Sport. This is the 2021 version. Dior Homme Sport 2021, and as you can see, that is a significant dent in the bottle. This is a 75 mil, so I don't know, maybe that's probably about 10 milliliters gone out of here. It's my favorite sport fragrance. I've talked about it quite a bit. Some strong lemony citrus in this fragrance. Also a nice dose of aldehydes. That's probably my favorite thing about it. Has that spiciness to it as well, and that cedar wood kind of vibe to it just freshened up a lot more compared to Dior Homme 2020. I mean, there's one thing you cannot deny: the dents don't lie. This is one I kind of throw on when I'm going to the gym. Sometimes I just wear this regularly. It's a pretty heavy rotated summertime fragrance for me. I wear it to like practices and rehearsals. So, I mean, the dent doesn't lie. This is probably one of my most worn, what I would consider freshy fragrances. Although this one's probably not quite a freshie, but you could throw it in that category. Anyway, from the house of Dior, it's Dior Homme Sport 2021. Every time I hold it up, it does that like spit thing. I hate that. Anyway. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Hermes, and this is Terre D'Hermes. Hermes is Terre D'Hermes, and the dent doesn't lie. That's probably about, what, 15, 20 mLs gone. Now, this is another one that does benefit from time. In other words, it's been in my collection a long time. This was easily probably one of my first 15, if not 20 fragrances in my collection. So it's been in my collection since the beginning, and I've been collecting for, what, 2.5, almost 3 years now, something like that. So I've had this one a while, and because it was along for the ride early on, it got a lot of wears. This one does still get wears today though. I still throw this one in the rotation from time to time. But you know it well. It's that classic gentleman's fragrance that features vetiver, has an orange flavoring to it, very smoky, flinty kind of vibe to it. Not really for everyone. Very earthy, very dirty, very ashy. But I really enjoy the scent. I'm always gonna have this bottle in my collection. It's a classic to me. It's a perfect fragrance for me. I don't have any complaints about it. So it's one that I gotta have. And the dent does not lie. Once again, from the house of Hermes, it's Terre D'Hermes. All right, guys, next one's from the house of Amouage, and this is Reflection Man. Amouage's Reflection Man, and once again, you can see the dent pretty clearly. That's what, maybe 15 mLs gone, 10, 15 mLs gone from it. This is another one though I have had a while. I can't say exactly how long I've had this fragrance, but I think it's been over a year. So if it's been over a year, I've had it for a long time. And if it got this much wear out of it, it means it's one that I've worn quite a bit. Again, I wish I could tell you how many times I've worn these, but unfortunately, I just have not been tracking my fragrances until recently. So, you know Reflection Man well, probably the easiest to wear, one of the easiest to wear Amouage fragrances. Powdery, floral, a little bit spicy, also kind of has a orange flavoring to it thanks to it having neroli in it, as well as bitter orange leaf, a little bit aromatic, has a nice sweet touch to it. Unfortunately for me, this one doesn't last that long on my skin. It's probably about a good 6-hour fragrance for me. I know a lot of people get a lot more wear out of it, and I'm gonna be honest, I do want Reflection 45. I do think it is better. I am eventually gonna pick that up, and when I do, I probably won't wear this one that much anymore, but it does still get wear out of me, and the dent doesn't lie. So once again, from the house of Amouage, this is Reflection Man. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Prada, and it's Prada L'Homme. Prada L'Homme, another one where the dent doesn't lie. I don't know, 10, 15 mLs out of it, maybe 20. To be fair, I have decanted this one out a little bit because I used to kind of take a group of fragrances in decanters with me when I would travel for work, and I would just wear kind of what was in that group. I don't really do that anymore, but this one was kind of in the wearing for that, but I did refill it a number of times because I did wear this a lot. Wore this one and Prada L'Homme Intense. I unfortunately can't see what's inside that bottle, so I can't tell if I've worn that one more than this one, but I think I've worn this one more. But yeah, again, you can tell that I've definitely worn this a bit. I still think it's one of the best office fragrances, one of the best clean, soapy, powdery, floral office fragrances you can get. Does feature iris, has a little bit of a pepperiness to it, a lot of other supporting florals, and more of an ambery dry down to it. I still do wear this from time to time. I don't wear it as much as I used to, but I do still give it some wears. And again, you know, you can tell I've worn this quite a bit. I've had this one, I can't really remember exactly when I got this, but it definitely was in the earlier echelons of me collecting. I would say it was within the first year. It's got plenty of wear. I got plenty of other fragrances that I've had since the start of me collecting that do not have dents like these do. Once again, from the house of Prada, this is Prada L'Homme. All right, guys, last but not least, this is easily my most worn fragrance because of the amount of juice that is gone from it. from the house of Nishane, this is Hacivat. Nishane's Hacivat. Now I do apologize. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm gonna hold it up to the light right now and give it a shake. Okay, it's about right there. So that's almost halfway gone. This is a 50 mil size, and you could say maybe there's 30 to 20, about maybe 30 mLs left. So 20 mLs are gone out of this or so, give or take, right? That's a massive dent in a bottle where I wear different fragrance almost every day. I have never decanted this out. I've only sprayed it from this. There have been times where I've sprayed this a little heavy from time to time, but overall it doesn't take much. I typically wear about 5 sprays for this. I live in Florida, so the fragrance can kind of go a little bit further, so to speak, because I would say it needs a little bit more to kind of cut through humidity when it's warm here. So, you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, this is 3 sprays max. Not for me. I got to spray this a little bit more, or maybe I just like to. But you know it well. Pineapple fragrance, very dry fragrance. A lot of oak moss, has a nice amount of jasmine in it to kind of give it this nice bed, but it doesn't kind of have that indolic smell to it. Very sharp fragrance, very bright and brisk fragrance. It's one of my favorites, if not my favorites. If I was gonna have just one fragrance, this is one that's gonna be in the top of the list for the running. But yeah, the dent in it does not lie, and I actually just checked it not that long ago to see like how much is left in here, and I couldn't believe how much was gone. But I know this is one of my favorites. I know it's one that gets a lot of wears, and I wish I had tracked it all the times I've worn this, or all the times I've sprayed it at least. But I don't have that in data, unfortunately, but you can't lie about the dent. I know you can't see it, but yeah, it's about right there. So that's almost halfway gone. No other bottle I have other than Oud Wood, which doesn't really count. It's a 30 mil, so not as much is gone out of it. But not any other bottle I have has as much juice gone. So once again, from the house from Nishane, this is Hacivat, and this has got to be my most worn fragrance. All right, guys, that's it. That's gonna do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching all the way into the end. Let me know down in the comments, what are some of your most worn fragrances? I already know most guys that wear fragrances only have a small percentage of fragrances that they wear very often. I'm a little bit of an enigma in that I go out of my way to wear a different fragrance all the time. But as you can see, the dents don't lie. I still have my ones that I go to more than others. I really appreciate you guys. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.